Welcome to Deep State. In just 2 days, the usually quiet city of Anchorage, Alaska will transform into the epicenter of global diplomacy. Here, far from the traditional power corridors of Washington or Moscow, an extraordinary meeting is set to unfold. U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin will come face to face, making Anchorage the unlikely stage for one of the most anticipated summits in recent history. Their urgent mission is clear and deeply consequential: to find a path to end the devastating war in Ukraine. The conflict has left cities in ruins, displaced millions, and sent shockwaves through the global community. Every day, the human cost grows, and the world watches, hoping for a breakthrough that could finally bring relief to those caught in the crossfire. This summit marks a dramatic shift in approach. After months of stalled negotiations and failed ceasefires, the two leaders are abandoning remote talks and intermediaries. Instead, they are turning to direct, personal diplomacy, hoping that a face-to-face encounter can succeed where traditional channels have failed. President Trump, visibly frustrated by the lack of progress, has decided to take matters into his own hands. He's chosen engagement over escalation, setting aside further sanctions for now. Confident in his reputation as a deal-maker, Trump is betting that his personal style and negotiation skills can break the deadlock and open new possibilities for peace. The meeting is historic on multiple fronts. It marks Putin's first visit to the United States in over a decade, and it's the first time Trump and Putin have met since Trump's previous term in office. The world's attention is fixed on Anchorage, as these two powerful leaders prepare to sit down together once again. For weeks, diplomats and advisors from both sides have worked tirelessly behind the scenes, hammering out details and setting the stage for this high-stakes encounter. But now, with the world watching, it's up to Trump and Putin to deliver. The question on everyone's mind: can this bold move finally silence the guns in Ukraine and pave the way for lasting peace? The stakes could not be higher. Ukraine's future hangs in the balance, as does the unity of the Western alliance and the scope of Russia's ambitions on the world stage. The outcome of this summit could redefine alliances, shift power dynamics, and alter the course of history for years to come. For both Trump and Putin, the outcome is personal as well as political. Success could cement their legacies as peacemakers, while failure could deepen divisions and prolong the suffering in Ukraine. The world's media is poised to capture every moment, every gesture, and every word exchanged between the two leaders. As the final preparations are made and security tightens around the summit venue, one central question remains: can this meeting in Alaska become the turning point for peace, or will it simply expose the deep and dangerous divisions that continue to fuel this conflict? Around the globe, millions hold their breath, waiting to see if history will be made in Anchorage, or if hopes for peace will once again be dashed. Anchorage isn't just a convenient meeting point, it's a symbol-laden choice. Once Russian territory, Alaska's history is now a backdrop for potential reconciliation. Russian officials have praised the venue, seeing it as a nod to shared history and a possible bridge to better relations. For the U.S., Alaska highlights both its Arctic identity and strategic power. The location halfway between Moscow and Washington is a calculated gesture, neutral yet meaningful. Both leaders are leveraging this symbolism to set a cooperative tone, even as tensions simmer. The legacy of the Alaska Purchase lingers, reminding both sides of shifting power and past deals. The hope that shared history can inspire a new vision for peace. Whether symbolism can translate into substance remains to be seen. As former President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin prepare for a high-stakes meeting, the world's attention is fixed on what could be decided behind closed doors. The summit is set to shape the future of international relations, with global leaders converging in hopes of influencing the outcome. Yet one crucial voice is notably absent from the main event: Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Despite being at the very heart of the conflict, Zelensky finds himself excluded from the primary negotiations, a decision that has sparked outrage and concern. In Kyiv, anxiety runs high. Ukrainian officials worry that decisions about their nation's future could be made without their direct input or consent. The fear is palpable, that Ukraine's sovereignty and security might be compromised in backroom deals. President Zelensky has made his position crystal clear. He insists that any agreement must fully respect Ukraine's territorial integrity. No land swaps, no secret concessions, and no compromises on the nation's borders. For him, these are non-negotiable principles. Although Zelensky will present his case in a pre-summit video call with Trump, the fact remains: Ukraine's exclusion from the main talks is deeply troubling. It raises questions about the legitimacy and fairness of any decisions made. European allies who have supported Ukraine throughout the conflict also find themselves sidelined. They are scrambling to ensure their voices are heard and their interests protected, fearing that their influence is waning as the summit unfolds. The foundational principle of nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine is now under serious threat. This has triggered alarm bells across Western capitals, with leaders and citizens alike demanding that Ukraine's agency be respected. Meanwhile, on the ground, the brutal reality of war continues. Ukrainian soldiers defend their homeland amid devastation, and millions of civilians anxiously await the summit's outcome, knowing it could determine their future. Zelensky is fighting on two fronts, one on the battlefield and another in the diplomatic arena. He is determined to ensure that Ukraine's fate is not decided without its own voice and participation. As world leaders gather in Alaska, the fate of Ukraine may hinge on decisions made far from its borders, decisions in which Ukraine itself has no direct seat at the table. The stakes could not be higher. The White House is downplaying expectations, calling the summit a listening exercise and a feel-out meeting. Trump's goal: assess Putin's intentions, not sign a peace treaty. He's consulting European allies to reassure them: no secret deals, no unilateral moves. The U.S. wants to show support for Ukraine and its allies, but also seeks an end to a costly war. Behind the scenes, all options are on the table, including controversial compromises. Trump's personal style, direct, transactional, will be put to the test. The challenge: find common ground without sacrificing core principles. Success depends on whether dialogue can open doors that traditional diplomacy could not. For Moscow, the Alaska summit is more than just a diplomatic win. It's a rare opportunity to assert its priorities on the world stage and directly challenge the West. Russian officials see the summit as a platform to press their core demands, hoping to shape the narrative and set the terms for any future negotiations. Russian media outlets have seized on the symbolism of the venue, portraying it as a gesture of respect from the United States and a personal triumph for President Putin. The coverage at home is carefully crafted to boost Putin's image, presenting him as a strong leader who commands attention and respect from global powers. Yet beneath the surface-level pageantry, Russia's red lines remain unmistakable. At the heart of Moscow's demands is the insistence on international recognition of its control over Crimea and the Donbas region, territories it considers non-negotiable parts of its sovereign domain. Equally crucial is a binding guarantee that Ukraine will never join NATO, a point Moscow views as essential to its national security and regional influence. For Putin, these demands are not just about land or politics. They represent a broader struggle to halt what he sees as NATO's relentless eastward expansion, and to reassert Russia's traditional sphere of influence in Eastern Europe. The Kremlin frames the conflict as a battle for the future security architecture of the region, seeking to draw a clear line against further Western encroachment. The Alaska summit, therefore, is not just a meeting, it's a high-stakes test of American resolve, especially with Trump at the table. Putin aims to gauge whether the U.S. is willing to make concessions or stand firm. From Moscow's perspective, any peace deal must not only validate Russia's territorial gains, but also fundamentally reshape the security order of Eastern Europe in its favor. The Kremlin envisions a new balance of power, one that acknowledges Russia's influence and curtails Western ambitions in the region. For American diplomats, the challenge is immense. Finding any room for compromise within Russia's rigid, uncompromising stance will require both creativity and resolve. In the Russian view, compromise is not about giving up ground, but about securing the nation's future and ensuring its security for generations to come. As the world watches closely, every gesture and word at the summit will be scrutinized for any hint of movement, because the stakes, for both sides, could not be higher. One explosive idea on the table: a land swap deal. The U.S. is reportedly considering letting Russia keep Crimea and parts of Donbas in exchange for a withdrawal elsewhere. Ukraine fiercely rejects this. Its borders are non-negotiable, and any land-for-peace deal is seen as rewarding aggression. Still, the fact that such options are discussed signals a shift toward pragmatic, if painful, solutions. Trump's transactional approach may make him more open to unconventional deals. The land swap debate highlights the brutal choices leaders face: uphold principles or end the bloodshed. Any agreement here would be fraught with risk and controversy. For some, it's a glimmer of hope. For others, a dangerous precedent. The U.S. Russia summit, with Ukraine and Europe on the sidelines, has rattled allies. European leaders fear being sidelined and are launching their own diplomatic efforts. Ukraine is the most anxious. Decisions made without Kiev could undermine its sovereignty. The summit's format challenges the nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine principle, raising fears of an imposed peace. Globally, there's hope for de-escalation, but also worry that great power deals could erode international law. Smaller nations fear a precedent where might makes right. The Alaska summit is a high-stakes gamble. It could stabilize the world, or deepen divisions. The outcome will be scrutinized far beyond Europe. Expectations are low. Officials stress this is just a first step, not a final deal. The real goal: reopen direct communication and see if there's any common ground for future talks. Even a simple agreement to keep talking would be a win, potentially easing tensions. No one expects all sides to be satisfied. Ukraine and Russia's demands remain irreconcilable. The U.S. is caught between ending the war, supporting allies, and upholding international law. The likely outcome: a fragile understanding to continue dialogue, with the hardest decisions still ahead. The summit's true measure will be what happens next. As the summit ends, the world will look for signs of progress or failure. One scenario: Trump and Putin agree to de-escalate and empower diplomats for further talks, possibly including Ukraine and Europe. This would be slow but a win for diplomacy. Another outcome: stalemate. The leaders restate their positions, issue vague statements, and the war grinds on. Or, a secret deal emerges, perhaps a land swap, risking Western unity and deepening the crisis if rejected by Ukraine. The summit is a crossroads, not a conclusion. The next steps: reduced fighting, new talks, or renewed conflict, will reveal which path has been chosen. For Ukraine, the stakes are existential. The world will watch for any glimmer of hope or warning of new dangers. Alaska's legacy will be written in what follows, not what's signed at the table.